There is an energy in the air. We're on the precipice of something desperately exciting.
You know what's worse than being hated? Being forgotten. Not in the gentle, merciful way where time softens the edges of who you were. I mean the kind of forgetting where your name gets scraped off the record entirely. Where someone drops a jar with your literal brain in it and has to ask, who the fuck is this guy? That's Charles Guiteau, presidential assassin, murderer of James A. Garfield, and a man so thoroughly erased from cultural memory that even his preserved brain became a storage room mystery. This is Frameshift, where we talk about movies like they owe us an explanation for our feelings. Today, Netflix's Death by Lightning, a 4-part historical drama that asks a genuinely interesting question. What happens when both the killer and the victim get buried by time? On paper, Death by Lightning is a prestige miniseries about the assassination of President James A. Garfield. There's period detail, Budapest standing in for Chicago, a brain in a jar, Sly and the Family Stone on the soundtrack. But really, it's a meditation on irrelevance and what it means to commit an act of historical violence and still vanish. Guiteau wanted significance. He got a specimen jar and a Wikipedia footnote. Garfield wanted to stay home on his farm. He got 79 days of suffering and a legacy most Americans couldn't name if you spotted them 3 hints. The show opens with that brain. A worker in 1969 literally drops it and asks, who the fuck is Charles Guiteau? It's funny, it's bleak, and it's the thesis of the entire series. Nobody remembers you, not even the people paid to store your brain. Michael Shannon plays Garfield, Matthew Macfadyen plays Guiteau, and somehow the show manages to make you care about both of them without ever pretending they're equivalent. Shannon's Garfield is a man who never wanted power, but understood how to wield it when necessary. Watch the convention scene. Garfield's supposed to nominate John Sherman. Instead, he commands a room of cynical, exhausted politicians and accidentally nominates himself through sheer charisma and principle. Shannon plays it with this reluctant authority, like a substitute teacher who realises mid-sentence that he's actually good at this. Betty Gilpin as Lucretia Garfield is doing something quietly radical here. She's playing a 19th century political wife with modern emotional intelligence. She's not decorative, she's not suffering nobly in the background. She's his partner. When Garfield gets that letter from John Sherman, she knows what it means. When he's shot, she becomes the steady centre of a national crisis. Gilpin makes you believe this woman could have run the country herself if anyone had bothered to ask. Then there's Macfadyen as Guiteau, who plays him like a man perpetually one sentence away from unravelling. Guiteau is delusional, desperate, sweaty and convinced that proximity to power makes him powerful. He's not menacing in the way Booth was theatrical or Oswald was cold. He's pathetic, and Macfadyen leans all the way into that. Every scene where Guiteau tries to insert himself into Garfield's orbit is uncomfortable in the way only cringe-inducing desperation can be. The show never lets you forget this man is going to kill the president, and somehow he's still small. Shea Wham as the corrupt Senator Roscoe Conkling, Bradley Whitford as the wily James G. Blaine, Vondi Curtis Hall as Frederick Douglass, Nick Offerman as Vice President Chester Arthur, who the show inexplicably turns into a 19th century frat president shouting, music, fighting, sausages. Is that historically accurate? Probably not. Does it work? Somehow, yes. The script knows when to let these character actors cook. Whitford gets to be sly and strategic. Wiggum gets to be venomous. Offerman gets to yell about sausages and then later deliver a surprisingly tender moment of self-awareness when he realises he's about to become president under the worst possible circumstances. It's like the show said, we know you came here for the assassination, but what if we also gave you a bunch of character actors doing period drama bit work? And honestly, I'm not mad about it. Here's the thing about Death by Lightning. It refuses to make Guiteau important. Most assassination stories centre the killer. They give them mystique or ideology or tragic backstory. Death by Lightning just lets him be a loser. A guy who thought shaking hands with the president once meant something. A guy who wrote letters that no one read. A guy whose brain ended up on a warehouse floor. Garfield, meanwhile, gets remembered as a decent man who never wanted to be president but might have made for a good one had he been given the time. Which is maybe the saddest epitaph you can get. Not great, not transformative, just decent, and robbed of the chance to be more. The show doesn't sensationalise the shooting. When it happens, it's sudden and ugly and bureaucratic. Garfield doesn't get a dramatic death scene. He gets 79 days of infection and medical incompetence while the country watches. And Guiteau, he gets a trial, a spectacle, and then oblivion. No one wins. History moves on. There's something unbearably sad about being forgotten for doing something terrible. Not because the person deserves to be remembered, but because it means the act itself gets erased. Garfield deserved better than to be a quiz question. Guiteau deserved nothing. But both of them deserve to be understood, not for sympathy, but for context, for the reminder that history isn't just made by great men, it's shaped by broken ones too. Death by Lightning doesn't flinch from that. It lets both men be human without excusing either of them. And in doing so, it asks a question we don't ask enough. What do we owe the people we've forgotten? So here's where we land. Death by Lightning is a sharp, strange, beautifully acted miniseries about a president most people can't name and an assassin history actively tried to delete. It's funny when it needs to be, it's somber when it should be, and it never ever pretends that spectacle is the same thing as significance. Also, Nick Offerman yells about sausages. If that's not enough to get you to watch 4 episodes of historical drama, I genuinely don't know what else to tell you. If more deep cuts like this are your thing, obscure tragedies, character actors doing their best work, brains in jars, you know where to find me. I'll be here, still thinking too much about footnotes.